Hello and welcome to the session on Saint Thomas Aquinas. His early life. One of the best champions, Saint Aquinas was born in 1227 AD. There's a lot of confusion as far as his year of birth is concerned. Few accept it as 1225 and a few as 1227, but the most probable year considered is 1227 AD. He is reckoned to be the greatest of schoolmen and philosophers in the Middle Ages. He was born in Sicily in a noble family and, as such, inherited strong imperial traditions. An extraordinarily intelligent man. Saint Aquinas moved among kings and popes and was a great traveler and a keen observer of current affairs. He lived at a time when papal monarchy as a political institution was a fact of the greatest significance in the political organization of Europe. At the age of 5, he began his early education at Monte Cassino, but after the military conflict, he was enrolled in the University of Naples. It was here that Saint Thomas was probably introduced to Aristotle, Averroes, and Maimonides, John of St. Julian, all of whom would influence his theological philosophy. At the age of 19, he resolved to join the Dominican order. His entire era is divided into periods. His early life from 1227 to 1244 AD, Paris Cologne Albert Magnus and First Paris Regency from 1245 to 1259, Naples Oriveto Rome 1259 to 1268, Corazon Second Paris Regency 1269 to 1272, Final Days and Straw 1272 to 1274. He passed away in the year 1274. He was canonized as a saint in 1323 by Pope John XXII. Few of his important works are Summa Theological, Summa Contra Gentiles, De Regimen Principum, Commentary on Aristotle's Politics, Disputed Questions on Truth. He was even recognized for his Eucharistic hymns. With his view of his works, we find that Aquinas tried to highlight all the problems, including the state, classification of governments, classification of laws, and relations between the temporal and spiritual authorities. Aquinas summed up lay and clerical thoughts of the Middle Ages better than any other medievalist did. We shall now have a look on his views on state. He believed that state is natural. He held that man was a social and a political animal, and that the state was necessary not only because it checked human evil, but also because without it, an individual could not realize himself completely. If one man was superior to other in terms of knowledge and providing justice, then he believed that he should rule over others for their good. To him, community of manners and customs was a good base for the state that was possible in smaller areas than in an empire. According to him, a state justifies itself by the education it gives to its members and by the provision it makes for the poor. To Saint Aquinas, all political authority is God. He viewed that it's the task of the ruler to establish coordination, peace, justice, educational opportunities, and self-sufficiency in all things between man and man for living well in the community. Finally, he must also see that the material conditions in the state serves the need of a higher goal, that is salvation. According to Saint Aquinas, man's dominion over man is of two kinds, that is, that which results from sin and takes the form of slavery, and secondly, that which results from social instinct and takes the form of a civil government, which may be royal, political, and economic. To him, Royal government is that in which he who is over the state has plenary, though not arbitrary powers. In political government, the powers of the ruler or rulers are restricted by certain laws of the state. He followed Aristotle's views on classification of government. According to Thomas Aquinas, a state ordinarily is ruled in two ways, that is, by the royals or by the political government. He held that all governments were good or bad according to how they work. The main objective of the government was to promote virtue among men to enable them to achieve eternal salvation. Saint Aquinas, hating the then medieval disorder, preferred monarchy. He believed that a monarchical form of government would ensure stability and unity of the state, as it gives the state an important advantage of regularity and experience. Monarchy may degenerate into tyranny. The degeneration of monarchy into a tyranny could be prevented if the monarchy were tempered. But Aquinas does not explain how this was to be done. Thus, according to him, the best form of government is an elective monarchy, in which a monarch should be made to take an oath to observe the constitution of the state, so that if he is out of the way of his oath, he could be justifiably deposed. Now, about classification of law, he says that he always tried to connect to God, nature, and man in a rational scheme, and did so though through his scheme of laws. The whole universe represents a rational unity and is ruled by a system of interrelated laws. Human society and its institutions were a part of the universe, and therefore the same principle operated in the regulation of human society as they did in other levels of universe. Both were governed by reason, divine or human. So here he tries to classify laws into four types. The first one is eternal law, natural law, divine law, and human law. So coming back to the first one, eternal law. Eternal law is a reason existing in the mind of God by which the whole universe is governed. This law regulates the heavenly and earthly spheres and the animate and inanimate worlds. It functions in the rational and irrational worlds in different ways. This law is beyond the comprehension of man. Secondly, natural law is a reflection of divine reason in human beings. It is reflected in the natural instinct of men to live in society, to secure their lives, to beget children, nourish them, seek good and avoid evil, and so on and so forth. The reason of man helps him to evolve certain general principles of conduct through his innate knowledge of what is good or bad, and these general principles from the body of natural law. Thirdly, divine law. And the divine law consists of direct revelation by God for his purpose through the saints or through the Bible. This law is not the discovery of man, instead, it's a gift of God's grace. Man needs the guidance of this law for attaining eternal happiness. Finally, human law. Saint Aquinas believes that it is a law applicable to humankind and is subdivided into law of nations and civil law. It is a positive law. Human law has its roots from the natural law. It is valid only if it is not in conflict with the natural law. An ordinance of human reason for the common good, one who has care for the community. So at a nutshell, I would try to conclude saying that Saint Aquinas holds a middling position by viewing that law is obeyed because it represents reason, acceptance, and promulgation by the sovereign. He tries to effect a happy compromise between divine will and revelation and human reason and knowledge. His writings show an interpretation of ancient classics. He was an individualist who believed that The individual alone had ultimate value. The social and political order existed for the sake of the individual. The true end of the individual being to attain eternal salvation. The church had more to do with him than the state. Thank you for watching this session.